Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everybody to Tiger Claw Radio. This is your host, Critical Failure. What a week it's been. What a week it's been. I can't think of any other way to describe it except that. We've got some van casting, got some video games, got some chiptunes, got the normal routine. For chiptunes, we're going to spend another week checking out the picks from the last Winter Chip compilation that Hemrock picked out because I feel like they're the chippiest chiptunes that we've played here on TCR for months. So let's check them out. Stick around. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. That is Super Santa Kicker from Mr. Minister Master. Awesome track. Awesome track. A little bit longer than I typically like to play here on TCR. That clocked in at 5 minutes and 4 seconds. Usually if it passes the 4-minute mark, I'm like, But I liked it. It's just had a nice peppy groove to it. Unfiltered square waves, typical of chiptunes. But managed to keep a good rhythm. Okay, so we did some van casting this past week. So let's Tarantino it, as I like to do. And Sherman's at the Wayback Machine to last week, right after recording TCR. Let's go there now. It's a van cast, baby! Alright, we are van casting. It is 4:31 p.m. on a Wednesday. That's right, this is being recorded last podcast day. I just figure I'm back in the van again. I've got some time, and believe it or not, but the elapsed time between last week's TCR coming out and now, I actually have had the chance to play some video games. So let's talk about that first before we get into why I'm on the road on this rainy Wednesday afternoon. Played a little bit more Retro Arc, a little bit more NES. I guess we'll say NES exploration. Just checking out the old NES library, revisiting old games I haven't played in a long time, and just doing my thing, man. I played Contra right out of the gate. I wanted to play Contra again because last week, you might remember, I took it for a test spin. I got to the waterfall stage, which is like stage 3, I think. And then I died. I had like a defensive meltdown and just died a bunch very quickly. I played it again, and this time it was weird because initially I did much worse. Last time I got to that point without getting touched. This time, I took a couple of losses early on to the point where I just decided to scratch it and start over. I had to play through portions of the first couple stages with just the initial, I don't even know what it's called. When I was a kid, we used to call it the dot gun, D-O-T, dot. That's like the standard gun in Contra that you get when you die and you start fresh, the white bullets. We used to call it the dot gun. I don't know what it's actually called. I had to play through several portions with that, just because of how my deaths fell. Last time I played, I picked up the spread shot, the S weapon. I picked that up early on, and I kept it through most of the game. So it was more nerve-wracking, but I ended up getting as far as the second base. Okay, I got to the top of the waterfall, and there's that like alien base front machine with the 2 tentacles, and I had died at him a couple of times, to the point where I died once and had to get game over, and then restart, use a continue to restart from the bottom of the waterfall. Climbed back up, finally got that guy, finally got him, and then from there made it into base 2, and I was kind of expecting to die right away, because this is the first time playing base 2 in years and years and years, and I was doing it with, I think I had 1 extra man. I had no extra man when I was fighting the boss of the waterfall. Then I blew the guy up and I got an extra man on the boss win, which was pretty cool. So that was all in all a good run, but I called it a day at that. So we're talking about probably 20 minutes of gameplay or something. Not long sessions. I'm keeping them short, and I'm just going back to the game to see what's what. So I played that, and then I kind of started perusing the NES games just to see what else is there, see what kind of grabs me or whatever. Long story short, I can't remember the other game I played. Ice Climber, yeah, there it was. So the last time I played Ice Climbers on NES was at MagFest a couple years back. And I played... MagFest famously had this weird bar top cab of NES games. It was like an official bar top NES game cab from the 80s. And it was running Ice Climber, and I tried it a couple years back. That was the last time I played it. I've never been a fan of Ice Climber. I always thought it was kind of a dumb game. I think it kind of gained some artificial popularity because they shoehorned the Ice Climbers characters into one of the Smash games. But I revisited it anyway. I had it set up on RetroArch. I was just flipping around. I wanted a quick play game. I wasn't settling in to do a run through on Zelda or something like that. I wanted like 10 minutes to play and then I'm out. So much so that I thought pinball was too long. Because if you're good at pinball, and not that I'm particularly good at it, but I know if you're good at pinball or if you're just having a good run, pinball can last a good long time. And I wanted a quick run game. So I settled in with Ice Climbers, and I had the best Ice Climber game I have ever had. I've never been good at it, and I made it to the third mountain and nearly to the top before I finally died. And I've never really been able to get anywhere in that game. If you know that game well, that probably still isn't anywhere, but it's a personal best for sure. It's a game with floaty controls, very early Nintendo floaty controls. The best thing I can equate it to would be if you're familiar with the Mario Brothers arcade game, Mario Brothers prior to Super Mario Brothers, where it's just the single screen action game where you're collecting the coins, bopping the turtles underneath and then pushing them, and there's crabs and stuff and all that. The game that became the battle mode in Super Mario Brothers 3. If you play the original version of that in the arcade, or if you play the NES port, the jump mechanics are very floaty, to the point where, like, you can jump really high, but you can't, like, jump very far in either direction. And if you angle it just right, you can kind of jump through the end of the pixel end of the platform, just because it works really weird the way it's calculated. Ice Climbers jumping is a lot like that, and I think those are the only two games I can think of that really work that way. That's funny. I've never really drawn that parallel until now. Now I kind of want to play Ice Climbers, and then Mario Arcade like immediately afterwards, just to see how the jumping mechanics are similar. But that was the farthest I've ever got, and it wasn't just the farthest I've ever got. I think it was the first time I ever played that game and just genuinely had fun. I had fun playing Ice Climber today. I can't remember if it's Climber or Climbers, but I know 11-year-old Alex would be throwing a fit saying you're getting it wrong. Yeah, so that was a good time. I'm not saying it's an awesome game. I still think it's kind of a dumb game. But I found the fun a little bit. And I had sort of a weird moment where, turning back the clock just a little bit, it's no secret I'm super into old MS-DOS games. I'm into old Atari games, and I kind of have been for a while. So visiting NES games, I had this weird feeling of playing NES and feeling the technology jump forward instead of backwards. Most people, if they play an NES now, they're usually taking a break from, the Nintendo Switch or maybe the, Xbox or whatever it is you like to play. A lot of modern games. Even older guys like me, it's usually like an add-on to a collection, right? Who's the most collectionist collector that we know? Is it Mecha Menace or Desm? One of you two, maybe Demez if he's still listening. You guys who have multiple systems upon systems. When you play the NES, specifically the NES, do you feel the technology jumping up or jumping down? I'm guessing down, even if it's just like, okay, it's a step down from Super Nintendo, but there's some games that are still really, really good on it. When I played the Nintendo, not just today, but yesterday, but today was the first time I realized it, yesterday and last week, I felt the technology bump up, because I'd been playing Atari a lot, and MS-DOS a lot, and that was a great feeling, because I was able to play the games, silly as they were, Contra and Ice Climbers and whatever, but I was able to play them and take them for what they represent, okay? So not just, how can I say this in a way that makes sense? I couldn't see the scaffolding. You know, I'm an IT professional now. I very well know the scaffolding is there. But I was able to see what the game was supposed to be, right? Which is something that I've gone back to the Nintendo before in my life, and I've had this situation where I couldn't see it. You know, I'd been playing a lot of, I don't know, Xbox 360 or PS3 or whatever at the time, and I went back to the NES and tried it, and just like, there's still games I like in it that are awesome, but you got to play the right games. No, not this time. This is the prime time for me to pull out the black box NES collection, play My Beloved Kung Fu, all that stuff. When those games they have their magic once again, it's an awesome thing. It's nice to know that magic can come back. Do you know what I mean? I don't know of a practical way to make it happen. If you've been playing a lot of modern games and you just want to feel that again, I don't know if it's practical to say, okay, play Atari for like a month straight. I don't know. We would have to find somebody who plays video games who's willing to do something crazy like that in the name of science, just to see how it feels. I don't know. Maybe down the road, I'll clear the palette and try it again and see if it's something I can duplicate. I don't know, but it's a good feeling. It was really cool. Good time to play NES. Yeah. Let's see, how we doing? 11 minutes in. Okay, so let's talk about why I'm actually going out right now. I'm on my way to the dentist, and I'm actually really nervous right now because I was eating some crackers the other day. My wife is really, really good at baking, and she's been making sourdough bread, and she figured out that if she can use as part of her sourdough starter, then she can spread it out, bake it, and make crackers with it, and they're really good. Homemade from scratch sourdough crackers. Love them. Bit into one, and I felt my tooth come loose, one of my bottom teeth. Like third from the middle. So not a molar, but it's like one of the front teeth. Not the front two, but one that's close to it. And I'm in a lot of pain. It kind of sucks. So I'm going to the dentist right now, and he's probably going to pull it, and I'm just going to get a little uglier. Because this same thing happened a couple of years back. I bit into an apple, and one of my teeth just cracked in half, and he pulled it out. Same spot, but on the upper half. My mouth is so that particular spot, top and bottom on both sides, are baby teeth. For whatever reason, they never came out, and adult teeth never grew in. And so now I'm gonna go get this tooth pulled, and I'm already getting older and uglier. You know, part of my beard, or just around the corners of my mouth, is turning gray, which is not a big deal because I'm 37 years old, and it's just something that happens around this time. But I look in the mirror and I feel it. You know, it's like, oh man. Yeah. So cross your fingers for me, lads. This might be the end of me just eating apples raw without having to cut them first. And I gotta be honest, I'm a little depressed about it. Just a little bit. So cross your fingers. Oh boy. How we doing? 13 minutes in? Yeah. So that's been pretty much it. Just playing some RetroArch. I managed to get some RetroArch in today. Not as much as I would have liked, but some, which I'm thankful for, because that's awesome. What else apart from RetroArch? I feel like I've done something else, but I really haven't, because it's been RetroArch and it's been like my synthesizers, and that's pretty much it. I guess it only has been like 6 hours or something since TCR went up from last week. So what are you going to do? That's actually a pretty good bit of experience for that period of time. My goal this week is to get the retro junk box out. Hemrock, God bless him, has been hammering me about it in his emails. Thank goodness he's been doing that. I really want to make this happen. I gotta be honest, I'm nervous about going to the post office because of the old coronavirus. But we got our masks on. People don't seem quite as nervous about it now as they used to be. Maybe it'll be fine. And with that, boys and girls, I'm going to send you back to the studio, which I haven't named yet. Maybe we'll do the old G and DB bit where we have a vote on what it should be named. The only reason why I'm shy about doing that, because I think we're going to end up, if I outsource naming my studio, we're going to end up with like I Wear a Dress Studios or something like that. I Wear a Dress Podcasting Studios or something like that. Up your nose with a rubber hose podcasting. All right, see you in the studio. Yeah, I got my tooth pulled. I kind of forgot about that, to be honest. Everything went fine. I'm just short a tooth now. A little older and a little uglier. All right, we are past the 20-minute mark. This is the point of the show when I like to tip my hat. Tip my fedora, my lady, to the sponsors. Thanks very much for keeping the lights on, giving of your resources to make sure we come back every single week. So the sponsors over on Patreon, I offer some exclusive content when I can. It's usually like, I don't know, every couple of months something comes out. I try to make it so that you can be part of the show without having to spend currency. But I do read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, EmeraldRangers.com, Tecmo Balls, Dorobka, and Eric Controller. And once we return to working in the office, we'll probably go back to Mondays and do early releases again as well. Thank you so much for keeping the lights on, and I hope you're enjoying the party. That's Vav with Ironclad Ultion. Ironclad Ultion. There you go. All right, boys and girls, we got one more shot in the van. Let's go there now on TCR.
Wow, it's a Vancast, everybody. Hey, Saturday morning. It's 8:36, a nice frosty 46 degrees outside. Ooh.
It's brisk, just a wee little bit. You can walk out in a sweatshirt and it feels good. Little breeze going, but not cold at all. It's perfect. Not a cloud in the sky. And my wife's car needs gas. Can you please go get the gas? Happy to do it. Leaving the house on a bright, sunny Saturday morning, just for a minute or two to get the gas, and then back home I go. So, since the last time I recorded, it hasn't been a whole lot in the way of playing NES games. I did some looking around at the library, just flipping through the games and seeing what is interesting to me and what isn't. I'm still playing Contra every time I sit down with the NES. But I noticed something recently that hadn't really occurred to me before. Now, maybe this is just me, but RetroArch keeps pretty close track of how long you play each game and how many times you play it. Very similar to Steam. And I started flipping through the games that are listed in my history, the game, what I've been playing lately, and it looks like when I sit down with an NES game, it's usually 15 to 20 minutes. If I sit down with it for a good NES session, for me, that's about what it is, 15 to 20 minutes, if it's a good game. In some cases, less. Like Ice Climbers, I had that one really good session, and I looked at the clock, and I only clocked in about 5 minutes in Ice Climbers, maybe 10 minutes. When I think back to when I was younger, and I had a nice, authentic NES collection, and emulation wasn't really, it was around, but it wasn't, how can I say this? The feeling of emulation in those days when I was a teenager was not quite as authentic. My home computer didn't have a sound card, and I didn't have a good gamepad. So if I was playing an NES game on an emulator in those days, I was using a keyboard and I was playing it without sound. So there was no comparison. Now it's pretty close. I mean, it's not exact, but it's pretty close. But when I was that age, I used to sit down with, I had a cardboard box lid, like the reverse side of the lid of a cardboard box, and I used that as a tray to keep my NES games. And it could fit like a good bit. I had like 60 plus games, and they all fit in that lid. And I used to do, when I would sit down for an NES session, I remember bouncing back and forth between games. The overall feeling was not like, all right, I'm going to sit down and play Bayou Billy for a couple of hours. No, I would sit down and I'd do like 2 runs of Bayou Billy, and then I would switch over to, I don't know, Kung Fu and do like a run or 2 of Kung Fu. And then I'd work on my my save file for Kirby's Adventure for a little while, maybe do a level 2 in Kirby's Adventure, and that sort of thing. But I never really had a firm grasp of how much time I was or was not spending in each game. There we go. Because I would sit and play Nintendo for a couple of hours, and that was it. So it was interesting I didn't realize how little time I would really put into an NES game before moving on to another one. And again, that's not a universal truth, because Kirby's Adventure is a good example. I plowed through Kirby's Adventure at one point, and that was like, a couple hour sessions of looking for secrets and all that stuff. So there definitely were exceptions to the rule. Any good Dragon Warrior game for the NES would keep you for a couple hours if you were really trying to give it a good, honest shot. But I don't know. I maybe it's early signs of just the type of gaming that I like. This real simple, quick session type games. Weird thought. All right, the gas station is just up ahead, so I'm gonna throw this on pause. We have got the gas. That mission is complete. I'm pulling out of the gas station now. Give me a second so I can rejoin traffic. Oh, that sun is bright, and it is right in my face. Feels good, man. All right, off we go. Right, so that was NES. I did, however, get the chance to work on some RPG Maker stuff this past week, and I posted a video about it. But I was working on my idle space game, and I worked out a mechanic where in the game you have a ship, and it just consists of one room. But you can build additional rooms on either side of the ship, 3 spaces in either direction. So I had to work out a mechanic where there were 3 slots on either side, and any room that was put there, the exits on the right or left side of that room would adhere to where you placed it in the ship. Doing that in RPG Maker, I mean, it's doable. There's not that sort of mechanic isn't built into the development environment. I had to make it work with using switches and variables and stuff. Variables and Boolean logic and all that sort of thing. And when I was doing it, it seemed enormously complex. But in the end, once it was done, I was like, oh, this isn't really very complex at all. And then I just started thinking about different ways that logic could be applied. I mean, it's very similar to like what they call a roguelike these days. And when I was doing it, what I had in mind was like the Binding of Isaac. How if you play the Binding of Isaac, it's made up of each floor consists of like, I don't know, several rooms, like 6 or 7. I haven't played that game in a long time, but 6 or 7 rooms, and each one of those rooms conforms to a very particular shape. Like in the back end, there's probably a bank of like 20 or 30 rooms, and it's taking 20 or 30 rooms and putting them randomly out in a layout. And I'm like, all right, if I were programming the Binding of Isaac, how would I make this work? Well, I'd have a grid, which would probably be like a 4x4 grid, and each item on the grid would have a code like A1, just like Battleship, A1, A2, A3, and whatever. And so you'd have Boolean logic, A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, etc. And at the beginning of any given level, you would just have, all right, give me 3 rooms on the grid that connect to each other, and flip those switches on to show that they're enterable rooms. And then randomly assign rooms from the bank to fill those slots that you've switched on. And then once you've got that, you've got a layout. And once you've got a layout, then you just have to have some sort of mechanic. It's like, all right, place an exit somewhere randomly, you know. If there's 6 rooms and each room has a number, then just generate a number between 1 and 6. And that number is the room that has the exit, and that sort of thing. And suddenly, I don't know, procedural generation or this random level creation or whatever, RNG, that's so popular in indie games for the past several years. Now it doesn't seem so magical, which, I don't know. I'd like to try and build something that isn't an RPG, something that's not an RPG Maker, to try and apply this logic somehow. Yeah, but it was a good time. It was a good time. Idle Space, despite being like a weird little side project, ended up being something so far that I'm pretty proud of. So that's pretty cool. All right, I think that's it for my going to get the gas adventure. I'm going to send you guys back to the studio. Back again in the studio. Before we jump over to the fail bag, I want to play a quick audio clip that Hemrock put together. It's a mashup of 2 previous episodes of TCR, both where I was talking about Goonies 2, where I think he's trying to point out some conflicting information. I don't know. Let's listen together and see what you think. You know, every time I hear that theme song, it makes me think I ought to pop in Goonies 2. Goonies 2 was a favorite of mine back in the day, but man, you really had to know where to go. Confusing non-linear game. The Goonies 2 had a password system, and I think I brought that game up Just the last time we sat down and was talking about games. I remember losing a couple of passwords to that, not being able to read my own handwriting. So that's the thing that happens when you're a kid. You know, what are you going to do?
Excuse me. You spoke a little bit about Goonies 2 in the last episode. Did you ever have problems with the password system? You know, a little bit. But here's the thing. Goonies 2 is a non-linear game that's designed around finding all of the items. So the big complaint about the Goonies 2 password system is once you find... when you put the password in, it puts you back at the very beginning. Okay? Which does suck. Don't get me wrong. But if you know the layout of the game, you can use the items that you've acquired to get rapid progress. Like, you can get back to where you were very quickly. But it takes a knowledge of the game. The first time you restart with a password, it's a problem. So I knew this from a very young age because I played Goonies 2 in the era when it was just me and my brothers, and we really had the time to rip apart a game like that. And I, on their turn, I would sit and watch them play. So we had time to, punch and hammer every wall and floor and ceiling and really find everything. So, to answer your question, no, not really. There are problems with it, but I never really had them. So let's address this. All right, once upon a time, when I was much younger, I was very young at the time. I can't remember how old I was, but young enough that my two of my older brothers would play Nintendo and whatnot, and they abandoned the NES. I think when the rest of the world did, like when the Super Nintendo came out, those guys moved on to the Super Nintendo and never really looked back. So this must have been a long time ago. I remember watching them play Goonies 2, and one of the passwords, I can't remember who wrote it down, got jargoned really hard. It was like one letter was just a little bit different. I can't remember exactly how, but if you looked at it, it looked normal, but one letter looked like a letter that it wasn't, and consequently every time I tried to put it in, I got a password error. And I think that happened more than once, but one time in particular stands out the most. Now, the question you asked was, did you have any problems with the password system? So there's really two ways to look at it. I lost progress writing down passwords, but the system itself, I don't think had an issue. I think it was just me not being able to write or read at that age. When you ask me if I had any trouble with the password system, my mind immediately goes to Faxanadu, a game where people have reported writing down their passwords correctly and putting them in, and it just not taking them. That's what I think of when you think of trouble with the password system. Or maybe River City Ransom, where the password system is fully functional, it's just way too long. Something like that. The only inherent problem with the Goonies 2 password system is it does not save your location, which is a problem. I mean, that's a real problem. But I was able to work around it as a kid, which is why I didn't think, no problems with the password system. Of course, I had problems writing down passwords, but that's not something that's exclusive to Goonies 2. That was any game that needed a password, when I was a little kid. Just to clarify the two. But now let's get to the email. I minimized it so I could address that. So you're going to give me a second while I pop it back open here. Okay. Greetings, Critical Failure. Thank you as usual for another episode. Hope your back is feeling better. It is. Was the CRT worth it? Oh, I gotta say, man, I don't think so. Because I like CRTs, but this one is way too big and way too heavy, and I'm not going to be getting into light guns, I don't think. I might get my zapper out, my NES zapper, a little bit, but the big draw when I realized we had an oversized CRT was now I can set up, any kind of light gun. And there's whatever. But I was hanging around with Alex Swingle, and we were looking at it, and apparently light gun accessories are mega expensive. So yeah, I just don't think that's going to happen. So as a consequence, I just have this big TV that's just kind of sitting here, and it has gotten used. It's somewhat. We've been able to play some Tetris Attack on it, The Super Nintendo is all hooked up and ready to go. Yeah, and that's been about it. Let's see, back to the email. I'm glad you like those chiptunes. It's been good listening to them again. Yeah, man, it has. It has. I was kind of trolling you on the Goonies 2 password question. I guess you didn't see the attached MP3 file on my last email. In any case, it contained a clip from an old episode where you claimed you did have some trouble with the password system, and a new rendition of the MP3 so you can compare the old CF to the new CF, as well as some of your belches between the two. Enjoy. Yep. You got me. Hashtag trolled. Alright. So you unsubscribed to the AVGN, eh? Well, if you're looking for more of an old school YouTube retro gaming vibe, you may want to check out the following on the old YouTubans: Nefarious Wes, NES Addict, Captain Algebra, Max Impact 24, and Super Nintendo. Awesome. I will have to watch these gentlemen to see what I think. But yeah, it would be good to get some active content producers on my subscription list. In retro news, we have some newish retro titles. First up is a Tetris clone called Petrus, which is selling for $15. Mega Xmas 89 is a ski-free clone on your Sega Genesis. The ROM is Name Your Price. Woo! Interested in that. Journey to Oblivion is another Name Your Price Sega Genesis game. This is a horizontally scrolling shooter. Super cool. Another awesome game type. Our friends at the Texas-based company Pico Interactive have announced another ROM dump on Steam called Super Hunchback. It appears to be an old Game Boy platformer. They'll also soon be releasing The Immortal and Noah's Ark. See links for details. All right, that's okay. That little paragraph right there had a ton in it. So let's start with Petrus. This looks like there was a game that was a lot like this called like Snakes or something like that, and it was actually created by the person who originally created Tetris. But I don't know. Yeah, I would. I'd do the ROM. You said ROM is pay what you want. Is it? No, that's $15. Okay, but $15 for a reproduction card that's brand new is actually not bad. I don't know. I'll save the link. Then we got Mega Xmas 89. I loved Ski Free as a kid, and this is actually, pretty faithful. This I'm more interested in. Mega Xmas 89 is region free and has been optimized for JP, NTSC, and PAL. The CCAM to give players from all regions the same game experience. Carts are currently sold out, but we may do another run soon. So they said carts are sold out, and that's fine. But I am interested to see what they were charging for a cart. And I'm opening the link, and it's giving me a warning, a privacy warning when I try to go to the link. So I'll definitely be downloading that ROM because I want to see what it's like. And then Journey to Oblivion. You mentioned it was a horizontal side-scrolling game, so I'm in, especially on the Genesis. And I'm looking at the screenshots now, and I'm going to be honest, the close-up art of the characters looks a little, I guess doujin-y is the word, a little like fan-arty, but the actual gameplay screenshots look really, really good. Yeah, I'm down. Heck yeah. Brand new and original game for the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis, inspired by the shmup style games of the 90s. Yeah, okay. What can I say until I've played it? Not much. And then I'm looking at the ROM dump on Steam from Pico Interactive. Okay, Super Hunchback looks good. And then we have The Immortal, which I'm really excited about. The Immortal is clocking in at $5.99 on sale right now for $4.79 American at 20% off. And that, yeah, I haven't played The Immortal in a long time. That one I might be down for. I don't know about the Hunchback game. I wouldn't pay $5 for it. It looks like a Game Boy platformer, which, you know, those were fun, but you're going to have to give me a good deal on that one if you want me to cough up cash for a Game Boy platformer. on Steam anyway. I think it might be different if it was like a ROM or something that I could put on a flash cart and play on original hardware. Awesome though, man. That is a great batch of retro-ish news. Oh yeah, and you also said Noah's Ark. What do we have for Noah's Ark? I'm looking to see if it looks familiar. It does not look familiar at all. When you mentioned it at first, I was thinking Super Noah's Ark 3D, which, has been on Steam for a while. This is more like a Bible adventures kind of game, like a side-scrolling game. Don't know. That's cool, man. Hamrock also says, some clarification on the NVIDIA Shield. I actually own the NVIDIA Shield Pro. That's the one that comes with the game controller. However, I bought mine circa 2015. It's an excellent screen... It's an excellent... Oh my gosh. Come on, read, CF. It's okay. It's an excellent streaming box, which is its primary use. It can also emulate up to the Dreamcast, although I've never used it for Dreamcast emulation. With that said, in 2021, you can probably do better for the money. I think Swingle is right on this one. More on that when we get to Swingle's comment. But yeah, I agree. Did you ever get to play with your son in MTG? No, he's into Dungeons and Dragons right now. Pretty hardcore. He made his deck, but it's kind of on standby. How's your new office? Will we get a room tour? Yes, you will. Still working out the best way to make that happen, but yes, that's on the production list. I'm rooting for you, Hemrock. Hashtag bring back Monday Night Morrowind, Rips Weekend in Review. I'll tell you what, man, this last week for me has been a week of trying to get things done that have been on my to-do list forever. Got the retro junk box out finally, and got a lot of stuff that was just being left undone around the house, that sort of thing. Felt good. Feels really good. Good to hear from you, man. Thanks for writing in. Much appreciated. Okay, the next one is from Alex Swingle, who typically Swingle leaves comments on the YouTube, but he actually wrote me directly, which kind of shocked me. He says, I see two good options for you. The 128 gigabyte model is around $65. No matter what, you need an SD card if you want EMU elect to run outside of the Android box. I recommend you get the 64 gig model for $52. Then a 32 to 64 gig SD card for $15 for that purpose. It can run up to Genesis with no problems. Most PSP games, all DS games, and all Dreamcast and PS1, and N64 is spotty on total performance. Linked below are the two eBay pages to buy it. Now, if you're interested in looking these up, they're listed as X88 Pro X3 boxes. $52 with 64 gigabyte hard drive, and then he lists me to a general SanDisk micro SD card sort of listing. $10 for a 64 gig SD card. That's $19 for the 128 gig model, and $5 to $10 for a USB adapter if you don't have that yet. This is what I mentioned to you on the podcast. And there was a follow-up to this that I think is worth revisiting. The Android box I mentioned uses a TF card, not an SD card. TF are micro SD. Right, so I did order the card. Okay, so here's the deal. I talked to Swingle shortly after this, and he was joking about it. It's like he spent all day looking up what the Prime box is. Most bang for your buck, most usable without going crazy. And he was like, I'm going to spend all day doing this, and that guy is just going to be like, cool story, bro, and move on. So he ended up actually buying this box. And then when he told me about it, sure enough, I bought it too. So I ordered this box he's talking about. I wanted the one with the 120 some odd gigabyte hard drive, but they were sold out of that model, and I didn't want to wait. So I ordered the 64 gigabyte hard drive. I got the TF card, the micro SD card. I ordered one of those. I also ordered a controller to go with it, a Bluetooth controller. Yeah. And I have the controller and the TF card sitting here, just waiting for the box to show up. and it's really exciting. I'm really doped about it. So we both ended up buying this box. So more on that once I've actually been able to put it to use. I'll get back with you and let you know how it actually goes. But thank you, man. Thank you for looking into it, because I know you know way more about this sort of stuff. so props, much appreciated. There we go. All right, I got this thing open now. Let's back it up to the beginning of last week's comments. Yeah, there we go. Wait. Is that it? That's it? There we go. No, there is more. Okay. Yeah, YouTube is trying to hide them from me. Okay, so last week, Desm checked in right away. He says, sorry you hurt your back carrying that TV. Back injuries at our age can be a major butt kicker. That's pretty cool. At least you got a nice deal for the old CRT. I actually think you're right. My tastes in videos changed a lot since 2009. Now, lots of stuff I liked from back then, I'm not so crazy about now. But James is one creator that just kind of milked the image of the AVGN instead of evolving like, say, Derek, Stop Skeletons, aka HVGN. People on Cinemassacre Truth Reddit say a lot of the quality issues now are because Screenwave Media runs the show. For newer recommendations, check out Shmup Junkie, Nefarious Wes, Dongled, and Max Impact 24. For documentary style, check out My Life in Gaming and Wrestling with Gaming and Kim Justice. Some good stuff there. What hurts me the most, I think, about the whole James Rolfe situation is unquestionably talented dude. There's been a couple of times in the past where I visited his YouTube channel with the intention of unsubscribing and then saw something legit that got me to hang on. And when I saw that one from Legend of Kage, it was clearly a guy punching the clock. Like, he wants to be doing something else, but he's got to do what he's famous for in order to keep the checks coming. I understand it. I wish him all the best, and I hope he can get back to doing what he likes to do, but you know, that's where I check out. Good luck, brother. Desmond, thanks for checking in, man. Good to hear from you. Alex Swingle writes, and at 20 minutes in, I reclaim this podcast for the Navajo Nation. That is the podcast I like. Glad I took it back. This pleases me to come from someone who's given me such harsh criticisms in the last couple of years. That actually felt good to read. Thank you, brother. Oh wait, there's more. I think I read his comments out of sequence. 50 minutes in, he writes, pretty much any $50 Chinese TV box will work for your needs. The NVIDIA Shield Pro is too expensive in today's market. It's expensive because it has NVIDIA in the title. You can buy a pre-built Ryzen 3 APU that will destroy the Shield at the same price point. My RK3200 Rock chip from 11 years ago played PSP games well enough, but it wasn't 60 frames per second. That was a $40 TV box back then. So if you just wanted N64 or maybe Dreamcast, get any modern TV box and install EMU Elec. There's a video for the T95 Max by ETA Prime that shows what a modern TV box playing up to GameCube games. The TF95 costs about $50 plus $8 to $10 for the SD card to run EMU Elec. Also, the T95 Max rivals the performance of the NVIDIA Shield. The Shield is truthfully only worth having if you get it for cheap. You're welcome. Yeah, this is before the one he sent me on the directly to my email. Yeah, and we ended up doing it. It's pretty sweet. And the video he's talking about, I saw that. Basically, you get an SD card, and you rig the SD card up to work like a boot disk. So if you wanted to run EMU Elec, you stick the SD card in, and then it boots up your emulation environment, or you can just leave it blank and watch Kodi or Netflix or whatever. Or I guess Netflix is having problems with these old TV boxes, but yeah, not getting it for Netflix. I'm not a huge Netflix fan anymore, but yeah, that's really awesome. Definitely going this route. So thank you, Swingle. Mechamenace checks in. He says, let me make things clear. On last week's TCR, I did not make a list of recommended games. I made a list of common NES games I see in the wild. That list also did not consider the price. There is a lot of commons closer to the $20 mark, such as Paperboy. Yeah, I remember, because I know you're the yard sailing guy, but you got to understand the topic at the reason we revisited the Nintendo to go over the common items was because there was an individual who was ordering games. So the stipulation would be to try and come up with games that would fit the way he was acquiring them. You go out into the wild, which is the way that requires the most work but also gets you the best deals. And that's the reason why it didn't mesh quite as much. Here's a list of Sega Genesis commons I see in garage sales. He says, this list is not a recommendation list, has nothing to do with the price. However, I do notice commons of Sega Genesis go for cheaper than NES commons. What's up with that? Why are you overpaying for NES commons? If I could interject, I think that the reason that is because the NES is so cool. I don't know why. I think it's pop culture appeal that the Sega Genesis just doesn't have because they're not a hardware manufacturer anymore. Not really. And I think it's ridiculous because the Genesis has awesome games. But at the same time, I'm thankful for it because everything on the Sega Genesis is cheaper. Like even if you're going to buy a reproduction, it's kind of been that way for several years now. You could jump on AliExpress and get yourself a really good Sega Genesis reproduction for $3.50, where you're going to be $10 plus if you want to get an NES reproduction. In most cases, yeah. But I don't know. That's just what I see. Let's get back to the email. Sega Genesis games are way less common to find in the wild than Nintendo stuff in my area. I forgot to note that last week. This is how my area is. It may be that the Midwest is pulling out Square RPGs on the SNESs or chunky Sega 32Xs, but it happens all day. Also, this is a garage sale commons list, not a flea market. I feel like the more variety at a flea market, since the people are dedicated to selling stuff, they get together in one place. Common black squares at my garage sales in my area. Now we're going to shotgun through this real quick. Miss Pac-Man, Sonic 2, then Sonic 1, Sonic Knuckles, Sonic 3 is uncommon. Mortal Kombat 1, 2, NHL 91, 93, Madden 92, 93, sports games of course. Aladdin, US Olympic Gold, Winter Challenge, Tommy Lasorda Baseball, yeah, I got that one in a similar situation. NBA Jam, regular non-TE, Cool Spot, Lion King, Monaco GP, which to be honest I wouldn't mind owning a copy of Monaco GP. Hang On, same deal. I don't have Hang On for the Genesis. I've got it for the Master System. Wouldn't mind owning a Genesis copy. X-Men 1, Desert Strike, followed by Jungle Strike. Urban is uncommon. Love all those games. Got them early on, so I don't know how common they are or are not. F-15, Strike Eagle, Jurassic Park, Altered Beast. I knew this game was garbage. But I saw right through those large detailed sprites. Who's with me? Yeah, you're going to get some contention on that. I know particularly from Sean. Old Darabka loves Altered Beast. Now, I like it too, but I play it on the Master System. Altered Beast is like the black box game of the Sega Genesis library. It's just an early, an early game in the lifespan of the system. So clearly, it's not going to hold up to the more complex titles. Sports Talk Football, Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Game has been very surprising surge in price recently. Sonic Spinball, I love this game. I want a new Sonic Spinball with bigger boards, more boards, less slowdown. Though slowdown helps in some areas. I wonder if the original game could be improved with hacking. Yeah, that's a really good question. Comic Zone, Vector Man 1, Street Fighter 2. That's a big question mark. Which Street Fighter 2? Because there's a lot of them. Mario Andretti, College Football 95, 96, 97, Championship, World Series Baseball 95, Sega 6-pack, Eternal Champions. I see a lot of games on this list that I ended up with. Tasmania, Taz Escape from Mars, Lotus 1, 2, Batman Forever, Pitfall, Pac-Man 2, Frogger, Ren and Stimpy's Invasion, Real Monsters, Bubsy, Abrams Tank, Hard Drivin', Toy Story, Power Rangers, Animaniacs, Quackshot. That's a big list, man. That's a big list. Let's not do a list like that again. And we have a list like that again. Some games that you think would be common, but I don't see as often. It's probably more interesting. Zoop. Anybody ever get into Zoop? I remember TV commercials for Zoop when I was a kid. And I remember trying it later in life, but I don't know, it didn't catch me. Sonic 3. I have a copy of Sonic 3 that I got from good old Sendu. And Sendu, I know that you mentioned that I always associate Sega Genesis stuff with you. This game is one of the reasons why, because there were a few key games I just got from you. One of them was Sonic 3. Now, my copy doesn't save, but it is playable. It's a good game. Batman 1989, Ghostbusters, Home Alone. I can't get an ounce of enthusiasm for any of that. Adventures of Batman and Robin. Columns is a good game, though. It's weird because Columns is listed as a game that's like you wouldn't see it very often, but you also listed the 6-pack as a common game which has Columns on it. I have the 6-pack which contains Columns. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a person who collects to play, not to collect. I guess not anymore anyway. So I'm okay with that one being somewhat rare. We're gonna pick Echo 1 and 2. Echo the Dolphin, is that really an uncommon game? That does kind of shock me, I gotta be honest. I remember Echo being in a lot of places at one point. That might be longer ago than I realized, though. Mortal Kombat 3, any shoot 'em up, what the heck, of course. Paperboy 1, Ninja Turtles, Hyperstone Heist. TMNT has always been expensive, but I guarantee this game was bought a lot during the years of the Sega Genesis. Streets of Rage 1 and 2. Again, we come to the same thing. Yes, uncommon games, but at least Streets of Rage 1 is on the 6-pack. Streets of Rage 2, you got something there. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, a.k.a. The Living Meme. Shaq Fu. Now, Shaq Fu, I think, became uncommon artificially. There was a website at one point, I don't know if it's still around, but they were talking about, just as a gag, they were trying to acquire and destroy all of the copies of Shaq Fu that were out there. They were buying them off of eBay, getting them at yard sales. Let's just break them all. So, this is like post-destruction movement for Shaq Fu. They've artificially created a scarcity. So, like, I remember there being some photos of a MagFest where there was a Shaq Fu that was like stuck in a urinal, so you could pee on it, and it's like, okay, well, now the game's rare, so congratulations. Any of the Shinobi games, granted one of them is in the 6-pack. Yep. Either Double Dragon and Kid Chameleon. Lots of games there. I don't have the energy to do the yard sailing, so that's awesome that you can get some of these. Let's get those together in a box. You should start the next retro junk box, man. Get all it together in a junk. It's only $15. Put it together in a box. Get the list of people. It'll make the rounds. I guarantee you, someone's gonna empty out all of those Sega Genesis games, and then when it gets back to you, you'll have a box of stuff. But how does he close this off? He says, again, this is a list of commons I see at garage sales only. It's not a recommendation list. Probably forgetting a lot of yellow tabs and other titles. I blast past those in shoe boxes. It really gives me a flavor for the games people were talking about back then in the area I currently reside. I don't know how taxing going through these lists are for you, but if you'd like, I can list common SNES games I find at garage sales in my area for the next TCR. I was most interested in the part where you talked about games you would think were common that are not. I would be interested to hear that list for Super Nintendo. Mecha Menace, thanks for checking in, man. Good to hear from you. Keep doing your garage sales. Keep making that cheddar, baby. People look down on resellers sometimes, but the reality is, if you're buying games at garage sales and you're getting them sold, then they're getting sold and not going into trash compactors that are in the back of thrift stores. So take that for what you will. Next comment is kind of shocking. This one comes in from 424 Recording. Now, I know most of you probably don't know who this guy is, but he made a tape called Not So Alamo that I bought like a year back or so, and we got really into in my house. In the indie music scene, he goes by the name Be Cool Cowboy. So yeah, that was like a favorite in my house for a while, with some of the tracks off of that tape. Yeah, so here he checks in, which is pretty sweet, so thanks for listening, man. Good to hear from you. And he says, it seems like unless you're a well-established channel, it's tough to do quality over quantity on YouTube today. I think the ironic thing with James's channel is that he could do one episode every few months and produce them the way he used to produce them, and the fans would love it and support him. But he just doesn't want to do it anymore. What you're talking about here is like the great tragedy of what we have, our modern version of YouTube. And James Rolfe is not the first person to fall by this sword, so to speak. Oops, phone's going off. Yeah, there we go. The first example I can think of was there used to be a TV show. There was a TV quality YouTube show called Awesome Video Games. Do you guys remember that? Or those two dudes who would like, it was kind of like a goof on 90s enthusiasm. They would just get super hype over games, whatever game it was, and it didn't matter. That's still, if you've never seen it, look up Awesome Video Games. It was being put out around the time the original Angry Video Game Nerd series, when he was the Angry Nintendo Nerd, when that stuff was gaining steam. They made a bunch of them for like a year or two or whatever, and then at one point they shifted gears and stopped doing their scripted, like, goofy show and started doing Let's Plays instead. Changed their name from Awesome Video Games to Video Games Awesome. They might even still be around. I don't know. But the second they made that change, I remember hearing them talk on an interview somewhere that it was very much, yeah, we can make those shows and people love them, but this other stuff, it takes us like an eighth of the time to produce and it makes almost as much money. And so we see the quality entertainment being sidetracked for more lucrative fluff entertainment. And I can't blame the guy for doing that. Not if he's a businessman, which James for sure has to be, because this is, let's be honest, this is his profession now. He's not a hobbyist like the rest of us are. So, he does what he's got to do. I don't know. It sucks. This is the part where you start hitting the bricks and you find somebody who's smaller again. And you're like, all right, well, who's out there who's flying under the radar? That's how we found James in the first place back in 2006 or whenever he got started. So it is what it is. Good to hear from you, brother. Thanks for writing in. By the way, he runs a podcast as well called Analog Thoughts in a Digital World. He does a lot with Jason Lambeth from Painted Blonde Studios. That's a good podcast. Last year in the spring, I used to listen to that every week when I would mow the grass. I would run that one. Good stuff. Aquafarm132 says, I'm a fan of WordPerfect 4.2. Sweet, thumbs up. Gaming Beast writes, I've recently seen AVGN's Shrek episode that features some other YouTubers. It was really sad. I agree. James should focus more on movie making. Although, yeah, the Polybius video was legit good. Still, Guru Larry is still great. Yes, you're right. Guru Larry is awesome. The last OG in the video game YouTube channels. I also agree that making a lot of popular NES games and their music has been co-opted by big video game YouTube channels, like the Screw Attack weapon. Yes, it's no longer the Screw Attack weapon from Metroid. It's now that website. Mega Man songs, Bob Chipman. I don't mind that Goonies 2 theme song is the TCR song, though. Call me biased. Thanks, man. Good to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Light Studios, good old Sendu from EmeraldRangers.com checks in. AVGN may have lost its appeal, but the other stuff James does isn't too bad. Yeah, I agree. You may get into his video where he tries to play his 3-year-old's Mario Maker levels, but there are plenty of people who do that. To switch or not to switch, I finally picked up one after managing to find one at a GameStop for not an inflated eBay price. I'll say it's okay. I picked it up for a review code that I wanted to, and wanted something to play in bed. Sadly, I'm one of those weirdos that rarely actually did their portable gaming outside of the home, so that feature had minimal appeal. But it does do what it advertises, and it's a decent home console for a lower price bracket. So tell me, how does having more space to play games feel bittersweet, since you probably won't have time to game? Very much so, actually. Last night, in fact, I finally got done with all of my responsibilities, and I crawled up to my office and just collapsed on the floor. And I didn't have the energy to turn my computer on or any of that stuff, so I just picked up my remote and ended up watching WCW wrestling from the 90s. Specifically 1993, the Saturday night WCW wrestling, which I never watched back then. So that was kind of fun. But no time and no energy either. It is very bittersweet. That's the life of the adult gamer. It is what it is, you know? That's reality. It's not my particular situation. That's my particular situation because I'm lucky enough to have a family and a job. So I got to count my blessings. Otherwise, I'll go through life bitter for no reason. All right. Good to hear from you, man. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for carrying TCR on your podcast network. Mechamanus writes in one more time for the Idle Space RPG Maker video. He says, I'm not familiar with this engine, but can you draw tiled images anywhere on screen? If so, your HUD problem is solved. And then he talks about just creating tiles in the environment chipset to represent the HUD. And unfortunately, RPG Maker doesn't work that way. Your environment is built up of a predefined set of graphics. And yes, I could do that, but it would be way more complicated than I'm willing to do, way more effort than I'm willing to put into Idle Space or an RPG Maker VXAce project. I didn't want to draw new environment graphics. That's like one of the prerequisites for me poking with that, because that's really hard. Like, if you're a game developer, then that should be something that's in your repertoire. I'm not really a game developer. This is just me having a good time. Excuse me, sorry. So, you know, it is what it is. And the very last comment we have for this week is one more from Alex Swingle. I posted one on a video that we've talked about before privately, him and I. It's my Five Nights at Freddy's Maximum Spooks video from several years ago. I don't know what prompted me to make that, but it's before I bought my webcam. So if you watch it, you can see I have a face cam set up, but it's like the old face cam that I got from Sendu that has a very low frame rate, and it's just really janky. And the whole time I was just hating myself. It's like, why am I doing this? And very clearly not enjoying what I'm doing. And yeah, it ended up being like a weirdly good video. But it's from a few years ago, so still gets me every time. Hashtag classic. That's what he writes. Thanks, man. Good to hear from you. So that's it for this week. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about old James Rolfe. This is where we come to a close. I like to end TCR with just a few words of encouragement. It's 2021. It's been a crazy year so far. We're just doing the best we can to get back to normal. And sometimes it can get too much. Sometimes it can feel like a lot. I can't promise things are going to go well. Nobody can. But I can promise you the only way out of whatever difficulty you're facing is right through, like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh, yeah! Take care of yourselves. Keep getting out of bed in the morning. I'm rooting for you. I'll see you next week.